Good evening and welcome to the COVID-19 update on Channels Television. I am Kayode Okikulu. Here are some of the highlights. President Muhammadu Buhari presides over the 11th virtual meeting of the Federal Executive Council in Abuja, approves 8.94 billion naira for procurement of testing facilities. Foreign Affairs Minister Jeffrey Oyema in attendance at virtual FEC meeting is first since recovering from COVID-19. And Russia rejects scrutiny over its coronavirus vaccine Sputnik 5, insists on its efficacy. Thank you for joining us on the program. A total of 263 COVID-19 patients received a clean bill of health in the last 24 hours, while 6 lost their lives to the deadly virus. According to latest figures from the Niger Center for Disease Control, the nation has recorded 47,290 positive cases of COVID-19 from 319,851 tests conducted since the inception of the pandemic in February. 33,609 patients have so far been discharged, with 956 fatalities. As at the last count, more than 12,000 individuals still have the virus, according to the NCDC. A breakdown of the latest figures shows 21 states and the FCT account for the 423 new cases. Lagos with 117, FCT follows with 40, Ondo 35, Rivers 28, Osun 24, Benue 21, Abia and Ogun States 19 each, Ebonyi 18, Delta and Kwara 17 apiece, Kaduna 15, Anambra 14, Ekiti 11, Kano 9, Imo 6, Gombe 4, Oyo and Taraba 3 each, Bauchi, Edo and Nasarawa with 1. A majority of government meetings are still being held virtually. One of them is the Federal Executive Council meeting, which held at the Presidential Villa Abuja, with some members joining in over the internet. The 11th virtual FEC meeting, presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari, approved 8.49 billion naira for the procurement of 12 items in various quantities for the testing of coronavirus by the NCDC. The memo was presented by the Minister of Health, Osage Ehanire, on behalf of the Center at the Council Chambers of the Presidential Villa. Of those present physically at the meeting include the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, Minister of State for Health, Olorinimbe Mamura, the Chief of Staff to the President, among others. On the virtual space were the Ministers of Humanitarian Affairs, Mines and Steel Development, Environment, and Foreign Affairs. Speaking of Nigeria's Foreign Affairs Minister, Mr. Jeffrey Oyema, is clearly back to work after receiving a clean bill of health almost a month since he tested positive for COVID-19. The minister announced his recovery on his Twitter handle today, saying he spent 3 weeks in isolation. The tweet reads, "By the very special grace of God, my latest COVID-19 test result came back negative after a 3-week isolation. I am eternally grateful to my family, the CNC and VP, the medical team, relations, friends, colleagues, religious leaders, and numerous well-wishers who through their care, prayers, fasting, messages of support and encouragement never let me walk alone." On July the 19th, the minister tweeted that his 4th COVID-19 test came back positive and he was heading to the isolation center. Well, obviously overjoyed at his recovery, staff at the ministry welcomed him back to work with a resounding cheer. Well, following the reopening of religious centers in Lagos, the State Safety Commission has organized a training for religious leaders on safety precautions to protect their worshippers against infections. The training is conducted for representatives of different groups and denominations who are expected to get the message across to a larger population in their various sects. The religious leaders are encouraged to adopt safe methods of worship and follow protocols laid down by the state government to contain the spread of COVID-19 at their various centers. Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu approved the reopening of religious centers across the state from August the 7th. Those services are to hold at 50% capacity.
When the pandemic broke out, religious centers across the state had to shut down. And in line with Mr. Governor's directive for them to resume last week, there's a need for us to train them with regard to safety, hazard identification, and showing that their facilities are ready to go with regards to hygiene and preventive controls, such that we can curb the spread of this pandemic. So the setup we have here is for 50 leaders that represent the different religious groups in Lagos State. We have representation from the Khan, that's the Christian Association of Nigeria. We have representation from the Chief Imam and so many other different members of the religious bodies in Lagos State.
Today is International Youth Day, arguably the first in a pandemic year. And youths in Ekiti State have been amplifying their experiences and expectations. They admit the pandemic brought unpleasant experiences, but they believe that with government intervention, they can surmount some of these challenges. Our correspondent, Babajide Agbeyo, reports.
Youths may not have been able to converge in large gatherings or rallies across the world today, but those in Ekiti State still managed to gather for a brief event to discuss their hopes ahead. They acknowledge the challenges posed by COVID-19, which the world and the country did not really bargain for. They equally applaud the responsiveness of the Ekiti State government to matters affecting them, while asking for some interventions to mitigate the effects of the pandemic on businesses and projections.
A number of the youth agenda is put in the budget. We actually asked for a youth development center. The government has set aside a landed property, and has begun to work with the National Youth Council and our organization to be able to have a befitting youth development center in Ekiti State. We also asked for the YCAD. The YCAD has been instituted by the government. So quite a number of things, a number of responses, which is positive that we have gotten. But of course, you know, there is always room. The best room in the world is the room for improvement. So we are still calling on the government. We know that there is a global pandemic, COVID-19, which has affected the economy of the world. Of course, it's state inclusive. A lot of things have happened. Budgets are being readjusted and all of that. We are just calling on the government to ensure that the promises that they have made to us as young people, we know that this time is very challenging, but we still want the needs of young people. If a population of Ekiti State, if 65% of it is young people, then it means that if we are not catering for the needs of the youth, then I don't understand what we are doing.
Notwithstanding the hurdles created by the pandemic, the youths here say they will weather the storm and adjust to new realities. Babajide Agbeyo for COVID-19 update.
Babatunde Adedoyin joins us this evening. He's a fellow West African Postgraduate College of Pharmacists. He joins us live in our Lagos studio. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Kayode.
Well, in the spirit of today, which is International Youth Day, I mean, statistics shows that young people are most affected by COVID-19. When you now come to youth and you look at the age bracket between 18, it's another thing entirely. But you've listened to some of these young people, and especially the fact that they have the energy. In the context of COVID-19, what do you think their role should be? What do you think the message for the day should be?
Yeah, thank you, Kayode. The prevalence, the rapid spread of the COVID-19 among the youths at the moment is a sharp deviation from what used to be when at the earlier stage of the pandemic. And I think that is because the youthful energy on its own accounts for that propensity to let their guards down. You know, they let their guards down, and that is why we are beginning to see those statistics tending towards the youthful age. The elderly, knowing that they are they're vulnerable, the target groups that are likely to develop serious complications are becoming more circumspect and more careful. They're taking all the precautionary measures to protect themselves against COVID-19. However, the youth have a very critical role to play in preventing the spread among themselves and infecting their exactly, the head population. I think that should be the mantra among the youth now. Let us protect ourselves so that we don't end up infecting those age brackets that are more vulnerable. Because when the youth get infected, the chances of them not developing severe complications are quite low as compared to the elderly age bracket.
So the message should be caution.
Caution, serious caution.
Okay, now let's talk about your field. Now, I mean, it emerged yesterday that Russia has developed a vaccine, and that's something we'll be dwelling on today. But, you look at it, 8 months or thereabouts into COVID-19, Russia says, look here, we have a vaccine. Is that some sort of record, really, in developing vaccines? I mean, what's the process and what's the duration, usually?
The claim by Russia that they've finally developed a vaccine for COVID-19 prevention should be taken with serious caution, because just early in July was when they conducted the phase 2 trial, which on its own is not enough to claim that they have found that they have gotten to the El Dorado.
Yeah.
The clinical trial phases are carefully designed trials that are meant to address specific areas of a drug molecule before it is being released into the market, into the general population. While the phase 3 trials are ongoing, I think it is it is absolutely irresponsible of Russia to release such into general population, because the issue of safety and efficacy have not been truly addressed by the minimal number of participants that were recruited in the earlier phases. Remember, the phase 3 clinical trials are meant to address, it's a multi-center trials that addresses hundreds, maybe thousands of participants, where critical issues about the drug, about the vaccine will be addressed. The issues about acute reactogenicity and even chronic reactogenicity subsequent upon the admission of this vaccine are the issues that ought to be addressed with the phase 3 clinical trials, which are still ongoing.
Yeah. So what do you think the duration should have been? Is it a factor of duration or due process?
Well,
maybe both.
Agreed. Well, we're in a race against a deadly pandemic, and there's so much pressure on on the world, on scientists around the world to develop a vaccine or a scientifically agreed therapeutic treatment to address COVID-19. However, that must be done with caution. Clinical trials, there are really no shortcuts to clinical trials, because taking shortcuts to clinical trials will take us several years back into the era before clinical trials became the order of the day. There are issues of good clinical practice that ought to be adhered to in conducting clinical trials, in conducting, interpreting, and publishing results of trials.
Those trials. Clearly, we have a job of work on our hands. But I'd like to thank you so much. So Watson Adedoyin, fellow West African Postgraduate College of Pharmacists. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
So let's head over to Niger State. The COVID-19 death toll in the state has risen to 11, and that's based on the latest report from the State Emergency Operations Center. Well, this is as the state government says it has put in place measures to ensure safe and quick transportation of specimens to the Niger Center for Disease Control. Here's Simon Empro with more on the COVID-19 statistics.
The latest report we've received from the Emergency Operations Center here in Minna, the Niger State capital, shows that the state has recorded 11 deaths from COVID-19. Now, that's an increase of 7 persons from the initial 7 deaths that we have been reporting based on the report available to us. In terms of the persons affected with the virus, we have 226 confirmed positive cases. And that figure is drawn from the 1,907 suspected cases that have been reported to the state. We have also seen from the report that in terms of gender spread, 85% of the affected persons are male, while 15% are female. We have also, based on the report, seen that the state is currently monitoring at least 513 persons, and 312 are said to be under surveillance. 41 persons have also been repatriated out of the total confirmed cases. The health workers that have been affected by this disease are 27, representing 12% of the total confirmed cases. The report also shows that the Niger State government is putting in place measures to ensure safe transportation of samples to the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, as well as safe return of results. From Mina, Empress Simon for COVID-19 update.
When we return in the spirit of World Mask Week, we'll tell you about $1 million face mask. What does it do? Please stay with us. Welcome back. Well, there are concerns over Africa's response to COVID-19, much of them linked to the low levels of testing as governments find it difficult to meet local needs. Well, only 16 countries have conducted more than 100,000 tests in the continent, and Nigeria has the highest number of tests with 319,581 conducted so far. A lack of adequate testing means that countries risk losing track of the virus and in turn may put the health systems under pressure. Well, here's an analysis of the testing figures across the countries with most cases on the continent. Well, South Africa leads with 3.2 million tests, a population of 5.8 million, meaning that about 5.6% of the nation's population has been tested. So that's for South Africa. Next up is Egypt. Egypt has tested 135,000 people with a population of 100 million, meaning that just 0.1% of its population has been tested for COVID-19. And then you have Nigeria with 319,851 tests, a population of 200 million, well, 0.2% of that population has been tested for COVID-19. And the big question will remain, what is the implication of this, followed by Ghana and some other countries? Well, let's join our guest this evening, who joins us from Abuja, Jean Jabs, a medical laboratory scientist, a WHO consultant on HIV testing. Good evening. Thank you for joining us on the program.
It's a delight to be here. Thank you so much, Coyote.
All right. Now, we're clearly struggling to test enough in Nigeria. I mean, let's start with Nigeria. And at this rate, it feels like rocket science to ramp up our testing. How difficult is it really to ramp up these tests?
Thanks for that question. I don't think there is any rocket science here. The conversation here is Nigeria has the capacity to test, in-country capacity to test about 10,000 samples per day. Nigeria has that capacity. There are about 62 laboratories that have been capacitated in country. Now, you need to understand that testing does not start in the lab. It actually starts in the community. We are facing a pandemic that is now community-based. Now, with a virus that has a reproductive rate of about 3, and we have a series interval of about 7 days, what we need to understand, and things we are facing, community testing, we need to improve and increase and strengthen demand creation. Before the laboratory receives tests, people have to collect samples in the field. So what is actually lacking in Nigeria, what is weak is demand creation. That was it. If we improve the demand creation, testing 10,000 per day, we're going to ramp up testing. 10,000 per day, that simply means that in a week, we'll be 5 days, 5 working days, we'll be talking about 50,000. So in a month or 4 weeks, we talk about 200,000. So the problem is not the laboratory, which is the supply side. The problem is demand creation. So we need to strengthen community, contact tracing, and move the conversation from a diagnostic and clinical base to a prevention message. The testing process here should be able to improve prevention. That will say, if I'm going to offer myself for testing, I'm actually doing myself good and the community good. So the issue here is that it has been too much of symptomatic testing. People who are asymptomatic should actually go for testing.
You know, I mean, you've raised the issue about raising the demand for tests, but maybe we should try and learn from the past.
Yes.
I know you've been involved with HIV testing, and I'm wondering, did we have this type of challenge with testing for HIV at some point?
Absolutely, we had that. When HIV was like a death sentence, you had that phobia for testing. It was like if you tested for HIV, no drugs were available. So it was like they're going to pack you and wait until the D-Day comes. But people have come to realize after a lot of community dialogue, a lot of prevention messages, and a lot of education and strengthening community-based organizations that went into the field, passing the right message. Right now, HIV testing is almost conducted like malaria testing. And people gladly go and submit themselves for testing. So the same phobia around COVID-19 is actually what is playing out. Now, let me say this. This is important for people to know. This is a virus that has a very weak, poor case fatality rate. You saw it. I'm glad Nigeria is doing very well. In February and March, the case fatality rate is about 3%. Now we are running around 2%. That simply means that going for a test and moving yourself to a test when you're symptomatic is not a death sentence. That's actually what happens. So the message should move. The COVID-19 testing should not be for symptomatic people. Only people should be glad to go for testing. And in addition, those who are now running contact tracing should be glad that they are contacted to be able to run a COVID-19 test, knowing that it's not a death sentence, and if they are found positive, they quickly go to the treatment and then save the life of those they've come across with. Well, so that's actually what the missing link is. It's not the laboratory has no capacity.
Well, great place to anchor. Mr. John Jab, medical laboratory scientist and WHO consultant on HIV testing. Thank you for those thoughts.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
94 Nigerian girls stranded in Lebanon have arrived in the country. The returnees include about 30 girls seen in an online video recently calling on the federal government and other relevant bodies and individuals to evacuate them from Lebanon. The National Agency for Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, had given the assurance that the federal government was making plans to have the girls as well as others evacuated. The chairman of the Nigeria Diaspora Commission, Abike Dabiri Erewa, who received the returnees at the Murtala Mohammed Airport in Lagos, said more repatriation flights are expected from Dubai over the next few days and 200 Nigerian prisoners from Saudi Arabia. Well, art rather than ostentation is the rationale behind the world's most expensive coronavirus mask. And this is coming from Israeli jewelers who are crafting the $1.5 million object for an unnamed US-based client. Made out of 18-karat gold and studded with 3,600 black and white diamonds, the mask will be fitted with an N99 filter to offer a high level of protection, so says Isaac Levi, the owner of Evil Jewelry brand. He says the client is a Chinese art collector living in the United States. The mask, which a team of around 25 artisans is working on, might be viewed a vulgar display of wealth during hard-hit economies. But for Levi, it is above all a work of art.
My name is...
And all eyes on Russia's Sputnik V COVID-19 vaccine, which has come under scrutiny since it was announced yesterday. Russia has dismissed the procedural concerns raised by experts globally, calling them absolutely groundless. Scientists in Germany, France, Spain, and the United States have all called for caution. But Russia's health minister says the vaccine production is going ahead, with the first packages to be received in 2 weeks. Well, our website, channelstv.com, has the latest updates on the pandemic, and all you need to do is log on and access channelstv.com. You get the news on various subjects which you desire. all at your fingertips. Well, that's COVID-19 update for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Kayodoki Kyolu.